Welcome to Here Where You Belong, your go-to podcast for exploring belonging, with your host and belonging expert, Dia Irby. We are thrilled to have you join us. Together, we'll dive into the depths of what it means for each of us to find our own place in the world, whether it's within our communities, our relationships, or within ourselves. Today's episode is meant to inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. So grab a cozy spot and settle in. Welcome to Here Where You Belong.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for joining us on Here Where You Belong, another exciting episode. I can't wait for you to hear all that my guest today has to offer. Today, I'm bringing to you April Blackwell. I asked my guests to tell me how they want to be introduced, and this is succinctly said, and I just want to say what she said. April is a follower of Jesus Christ, a late bloomer, we might get into that, a business owner of a mortgage brokerage in Raleigh, North Carolina. She's the proud mom, I added the proud, mom of 3 elementary school children, and wife to a supportive husband. Yes, April, what a full life. Welcome. Anything you want to add to that intro?
I think that's enough. That's plenty. There are things that I do on the fringes, of course, but that is the core essential of my day-to-day.
Essence of who you are. Yes. Now, I also ask my guests to talk about when they have maybe not felt like they've belonged, or how does belonging fit in your life story? And you mentioned that you were born a strong, intelligent, happy extrovert. And that's how a number of us start off, with all of our potential. And then life happens.
Exactly.
Go ahead. Tell us about it.
Oh, I think belonging starts in the home, right? So I learned very early on, I was very loved by my mother, my father, my grandparents. I had that absolute confidence that I belonged and loved. And I was very outgoing and very smart, all the things. I mean, I don't want to not say, not in a braggadocious kind of way, but just in a, practical manner. Learned very quickly, did very well in school. Always had a very strong sense of self-confidence, but that was absolutely learned from my environment. And I was so thankful and very fortunate that I grew up in that environment, because I do understand that not everybody does.
You are definitely blessed to have a good, supportive home.
Absolutely.
But a lot of times we think that, oh, you've got a great life because look at, you have everything going for you. But still, we have struggles, because you mentioned you didn't want to be criticized for being nerdy.
That's right. I mean, life settles in, and you start navigating your spaces, the school that you're in, the organizations that you go to, and you start observing differences that, wait a minute, like, I'm not really fitting in here. One real big example comes to mind, and I don't mean to make this sound in like any type of negative way, but most of the classes that I was in high school were the advanced classes and gifted classes and things like that. There was a scheduling difficulty in one semester, and I wasn't able to be in the advanced history class that I was normally in. My whole school upbringing, I was always with that group of kids, the A students, the high achievers, and definitely felt like I belonged there. And then one semester I had to be in just the typical history class, but with everybody else, wonderful people. Again, I'm not criticizing, and I don't want to sound snobby about it, but that was a situation where I really realized, like, wow, like, not everybody has the same experience in the orderly way that my learning environment had been. And I had kind of quickly learned, like, I just felt different in that class. And just, I wanted to sit at the front of the class. I wanted to take notes. And, then I wanted to be respectful, all the things. And we had lots of kids that were throwing paper balls and shooting airplanes and those kinds of things. So sometimes you get misplaced and you're out of your environment, and then you try to figure out how do you fit in. In other situations, like I had always excelled greatly in math or whatever, but other kids who maybe did not feel confident in their skills, instead of celebrating how I did well, they would maybe make fun of me, and then in order for me to, after you get a few hits like that, you start feeling like, well, maybe I just need to dim down a little bit, and start just acting silly and being goofy and trying to fit in that way. So you start modifying, or I started to modify my own behavior so that I would be more accepted by the peers around me.
That is, I think you were not alone.
Mm-hmm.
We all do want to feel like we belong. And sometimes we find ourselves in places where we don't belong and we're not supposed to belong. We're in the wrong place. If we feel
Right.
like we don't belong, we might be in the wrong place. I've said that a number of times. And that's exactly. And why is it people think that if they dim your light, their light's going to be brighter? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. It's just easier, I suppose, for them. You and I certainly would not treat other people that way, but I just would guess that people who are less maybe emotionally intelligent, they haven't maybe quite found their own self-confidence yet. I mean, there's a lot of people that demean others to make themselves look better. That seems to be a common practice. I think it's a sad common practice, but it's a reflection of one's own lack of self-confidence and lack of maturity, to be honest.
It's bullying.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a theory that bullies are not bullies because, well, likely they were bullied and they learned that is how you deal with the world. So if I can be meaner to you than you are to me, then I feel like I'm on top, and then I feel important. But it's really just a shell to hide behind, a being not having any confidence. But here's the thing that I want everyone to understand is that we do all belong in the right place, and we're supposed to be who we are. We're supposed to stay true to ourselves and not try to be somebody else. I mean, I'm sure that maybe there was some relief for you when you changed how you were in class, but you were probably miserable not being who you are, right?
Absolutely. And, I've felt that common thread throughout, my career as I developed and grew. But something that you said I wanted to go back to, which is people who feel a sense of rejection, which is the opposite of belonging,
Mm-hmm.
would rather push you away and make you not want to be their friend so that you don't have the opportunity to reject them. I think it's a play on control when others just lash out, and I think it's a warning sign if we see that in others around us, that they may have deep-rooted feelings of rejection, which could come from how they grew up and how they were nurtured or not nurtured and what their family life is like. And so now that I have children in elementary school and I go to their classes, I get to see this more firsthand in how children respond to one another. I went to my first graders class at Christmas time for their holiday party, and there was a child there that was really acting out a lot, and I could hear the murmurings that he had this reputation for doing that. And I immediately wanted to be with that boy. Like, I knew he was hurt because hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
So I sat down at his table and we had this snowflake exercise where we cut coffee filters and made snowflakes out of them. and he was having a difficult time with that task. And I asked him to be patient and to calm down. And we made snowflakes together. And I'm telling you, like, when I left, that boy hugged me. And like, I just felt this deep sense that I did something very important for him. And I just bring that up because children grow up, and if that need isn't met, they just grow up to be these angry people, and we just dismiss them as naturally angry people, but it's really because they're lacking something inside. And the greatest gift we can give someone is the gift of letting them know they're seen, they're heard, and they belong. And in so doing, we create our own belongingness when we reach out to others and let them know that I see you, I care for you just the way you are.
Wow, that's powerful. And as we look at people around us, think back if they're being obnoxious or mean or not easy to get along with, and we all know people like that, that you want to say, I had one nerve left and you just stepped on it. We know people like that. Just imagine them being a first grader sitting at the table trying to make snowflakes and nobody helped them. So be that April that sits down with him. Now, I'm guessing it was inviting the parents to come.
Yes. Yeah, it was a holiday party. They were pizza making activities.
Were there any parents that showed up or significant adults that showed up for that student? Were there?
Nobody was there for him, and there wasn't a 1-to-1 ratio either. I just felt that calling on the inside, like I need to show this child some love, like he's acting this way because he's learned it. He's learned to do this. This is how he's protecting himself. He doesn't want to be rejected, so he's going to push others away so that he has some kind of control in his life.
And also, I think people act out, whatever age, to get the attention that they're not getting. There's something else going on behind that behavior.
There's always
maybe
something else.
A trauma of some kind could be there. So from this, we see that belonging, you create your belonging, you said that. We create belonging for ourselves, but we also create belonging for other people. And we need to be aware of how we can do that. So what keeps us from knowing that we belong?
That negative voice,
like, what does that negative voice say?
That little tap on the shoulder that interjects, that makes you question everything. The negative self-talk that says, you don't belong here. You're not worthy. You're not good enough. They're better than you. Are you sure you should be here? There's something called imposter syndrome that, is the sort of the shadow side of a high achiever. Lots of high achievers achieve at a very high level, but they're always afraid that they're going to be found out. That what's going to, they have this fear, like what's going to happen when everybody knows who I really am. And they're really great people, but it's just, again, imposter syndrome is nothing than this negative voice. I call it the enemy. It's the devil. You can call it your negative voice, negative self-talk, angel devil. I think there's this tug of war on the inside of every one of us. And what we feed is what will grow and win this war. And that's the war between good versus evil. Good wants us to achieve our full potential, wants us to rise to the occasion, wants us to be all we can be, wants us to utilize the gifts that God has given us to impact others in the world. But then there's this self-sabotaging side of us, the negative side of us, the enemy that comes against and is like saying, no, you can't do that. Come back down. You know, you grew up in a divorced family home. People who grew up with divorced parents, they don't run companies. They don't, they don't succeed very far. They don't go far in life. People who grew up in broken homes, they don't do those kinds of things. You don't have a place here at this table. You need to be quiet and let somebody more stable and more steady lead this conversation. It's that negativity seeps in as self-doubt, creates anxiety, creates fear, and it exists only inside of us. It doesn't exist anyplace else. It's a story, it's a construct that we create, that we give ourselves to make an excuse so we don't push ahead, so we don't move forward, so we don't get that next contract, so we don't do more, so we don't speak up and talk to the little boy that needs the help. Because, well, who am I to do that?
We're all storytellers. We're telling ourselves stories, and they're either lies or the truth. But there's that conversation constantly going. And here's the thing. You mentioned also that you early in your career, you were the only person.
Oh yeah.
You were the only, go ahead, tell about that.
Only young person, the only woman. Now I might get to place on the only 50-year-old, now I'm the only old person in the room, so early in my career, like once I graduated college and I started out in banking, which is predominantly male dominated and was mostly middle-age dominated. Now I reflect that remark, but 20 plus years, 30 years ago, that wasn't the case. And so trying to again, observe, and we scientifically, we have these things called mirror neurons. It's rooted in our DNA to want to be like our tribe for protection, for the survival, for our own personal survival. And so my mirror neurons certainly kicked in, and I was like, okay, instead of wearing my flowy hippie dresses and letting my eyebrow bushes grow and not wearing makeup and having really long hair, I need to now look the part. I need to put on my suit, polish my shoes, put on some makeup, trim my hair, get my eyebrows done, put on my makeup so that I can be accepted by this group. The other really big change besides physical fitting in is that I learned in my communication style that I needed to be very poignant and clear, succinct, very business, get to the point, get it done. Right. So I lost this personal warm rapport that I naturally had. And so many years later, I was at this crossroads where my business was suffering. I was trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? And I realized I was being just too analytical, and I wasn't being caring enough.
Mm-hmm. Which was really part of who you truly were, and you had made yourself fit in this other mold.
Exactly. I was like, I'm going to be banker, April.
Yes. All right. Hold that thought. We're going to be right back. I'm going to ask about your greatest accomplishment and your favorite quote. We'll be right back. Hey there. Isn't my guest amazing? So glad you joined us today. In this world that often feels disconnected, building community and fostering belonging are essential. That's why I created this podcast, to bring inspiring people to you, to encourage you to create that sense of belonging and community, no matter where you are. If you're being blessed by my guest, and we have some more, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You know who needs to hear this. Stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. Now, back to our amazing guest. And We're back with April. April, you're so, you have traveled this journey and made it on the other side, but we still go back and forth with this, don't we? You're not like totally over, never ever having imposter syndrome, I'm sure, just like, well, then you wouldn't be human. But I want to ask you, your greatest accomplishment, you said, was starting your own business and surviving the toughest year of your life, 2023.
Yeah.
Just a little bit about that.
Okay. So context, I'm in the mortgage industry. Okay.
Mortgage and enough said.
And not enough said. Well, I mean, you assume that everybody watches interest rates and watches the news and follows real estate data, but that may not be the case for people outside of our bubble. You're in real estate. So we are both in that real estate space, and we think that everybody knows, but for those who don't know, like interest rates got really high in 2023. Home prices were still on the other side of skyrocketing through COVID. You combine high prices with high interest rates, and it's an equation for nobody or very few people having the ability to purchase a home. So the demand for mortgages really like bottomed out. I mean, I had like the absolute lowest production year of my 20 plus year span as a mortgage loan officer. And it's my second year in business, and I had a team at the beginning of the year. And I had to make some really hard choices, like some very hard choices. I went 6 months without pay to keep them as long as I could, but then I just couldn't keep them any longer. And it was hard. It was like just on every level hard, because I loved each person.
You had built a community. And
Absolutely.
you had to, and that was probably part of the struggle. You helped them belong. They belonged. It was a strong community. You were glad that each person was there, or however many people you had. And now you're going to have to say, oops, sorry, you can't belong here.
Yeah. So instead of now putting my arms around the little first grader who needs help, now to them, I'm massively wholesaling rejection, right? Like, and to be on that side, to let people go and say, like, I can no longer financially support you for my own personal survival. It was absolutely, I've never gone through anything so traumatic, difficult. But on the other side of it, I'm thankful for the experience, because like in my weakness, I feel like I was made stronger, because I really had to depend on my faith and my hope and my optimism that better days were coming, and that I did the right thing ultimately so that I could get through that. And I did. And I'm here, and I don't have the overhead that I did starting out 2023. And I feel very optimistic. Like, and the business is already resurrected, so to speak, is flourishing. And I'm very thankful for that as well. But every entrepreneur knows, like, when you make a tough choice like that, you're doing it because it's the best thing that you can do at the time.
Right. And it brings us to your favorite quote. People use all kinds of things for quotes, but you chose one of my favorite passages in the Old Testament, in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And what you just shared with us was you putting into practice that verse.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, every morning, every day. I mean, I think most entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, like if you're small, just starting out as just you, or a very, very small team or limited staff, it's a faith walk every single day. And I'm thankful for this journey, because it really, it keeps me connected to my source of energy, to my source of ideas, to my reassurance that the future is always going to be brighter, and my dependence on knowing that I will always be able to get through anything, no matter what. and that he will make the path straight, and he will order my steps. It's just, I can't
What's
imagine
interesting
any other
is,
way.
my future's always brighter. And a lot of times people think that means everything's going to be hunky-dory. We're going to have no problems. But it's that in the darkness, like, yea, though I go through the valley of the shadow of death, even though we are going through darkness, it isn't a darkness alone. There is a light that is there with us. So we don't go through darkness. So brighter days are ahead, yes, because we're taking the light with us. And all of that has to do with why we know that we belong. Even if you don't have anybody sit down and help you make snowflakes, even if you are the only at work, even if you feel rejected by classmates, you do belong because you're anchored in your belonging with a higher power, with God.
Absolutely. Something I have discovered in my reflection, I shared with you earlier, is that I turned 50 this month. And so I've been in this very reflective state. And our church had a series on image, being created in the image of God. And I read a book, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, that was in synchronization with that message. And he was a plastic facial surgeon that became a psychologist. And in his book, he says the greatest thing a person can do for their success and happiness is to identify themselves as created in the image of God. This was not a religious book. It was written in 1960, sort of like a freewheeling time, and by a medical professional. And that really impacted me. And when you asked me to come on the podcast to talk about belonging, I was like, really, when you're rooted in your identity as being created in the image of God, and that you are a daughter or son of the King of the universe, like, there's nothing that you can't do. And if you draw your strength from him, and you can do all things that are possible through Christ that strengthens you, then you can get through anything. And that optimism that you're talking about isn't that, oh, everything's going to be perfect forever, because it's not. We know that life will have tribulations and troubles. We know that, but we can draw on the peace that transcends understanding. And we just know that no matter what happens, I'll get through it because I have someone on my side protecting me.
Exactly. So everyone does belong, and on this earth. And unfortunately, there's been a larger number of people that don't feel like they even belong on earth, like to be alive. But if you're listening and you're dealing with those thoughts, those are lies. You belong. You belong. Maybe you haven't found your right people, but you do belong. You were created to be you and not a version of someone else.
Absolutely.
So April, you have, like you said, a mortgage company. And how does someone, take us quickly through a process, and how does working with mortgages and belonging, how does that go together?
I see myself as a workplace minister, and that my business is my ministry. So when I work with people, I'm working with people, right? And I meet them where they are. And oftentimes there's a gap between their hope for owning a home and their ability to execute on it. And it can be very discouraging. I mean, it's very discouraging for people who want to buy homes at today's prices, at today's interest rates, even though they're better than they were last year. It's still pretty much out of reach for a lot of people. So my philosophy is to be this bridge from where they are not ready to get them ready by helping them think outside of the box, by getting them unstuck and not complaining about things that are outside their control. A buyer or a prospective home buyer cannot control home prices. They cannot control interest rates. They can control their attitude. They can control location. And they can control a character and skill set that will help them improve their life to increase their income. I recently discovered some non-degree online courses and courses that are available through Wake Tech. Bethel Church has an online computer programming course.
Yes.
There's Wake Tech has a multitude of technology, cybersecurity, biocertifications, advanced manufacturing courses. And these courses start salaries in the mid-70s and up. And so instead of telling people, well, I'm sorry you can't afford a house, come back to me when you can, take the opportunity to let them know that there are other opportunities. There are ways and means in which they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps, take courses to get into higher income earning fields that within 4 to 5 years, they'll be earning 6 figures. So I don't see myself as just a mortgage broker, but I do see myself as a person that has the opportunity to transform somebody's life and give them hope for a better life for them, whether or not I ever do a mortgage for them. And that is just, it's just a part of, I mean, this conversation, starts with an initial phone call. Like you asked about my process. It's like an initial call, like a needs analysis, a discovery call. Where are you? Where do you need to be? And then we move on to an application so I can dissect and analyze what is to try to provide a solution for what we can today. And if there is not a solution that meets the needs today, then I follow up and I let them know about some alternatives. Like, did you know these are programs out there that can help you if you're in a lower income earning position? Did you know you don't have to stay there?
You're giving hope, and you truly believe people belong in the house that
Absolutely.
they desire. They belong in a home. Well, this is fabulous. You are encouraging people and not saying, well, then you can't, because can't shouldn't be in your vocabulary. You can. It's going to take some creative thinking to get it there. I do that with real estate, trying to find the house that they need. Well,
Right.
Let's be a little creative about how we can find a house for you. Or let's evaluate what your criteria is, etc. Wow. So we're going to put in the comments below how to get in touch with you, but just go ahead and tell us if somebody don't want to look it up. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
My website is full of information. Blackwell Mortgage NC, that stands for North Carolina. Sometimes that's hard to hear. So blackwellmortgagenc.com. Under apply and learn is our process. Under our process, they can schedule that initial phone call, and that is the best place to start. And I just want to kind of wrap up what I was just saying, and that homeownership is a goal, and it's a worthy goal. It's worth pursuing. And something that I heard growing up, my grandmother used to say, where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. If you want something bad enough, no matter what that goal is for you in life, and I think home ownership is a metaphor. I mean, the path to home ownership is a metaphor for achieving any goal. And if you want something bad enough, you will find out what it's going to take to get it. You will get the plan, and then you will start ticking things off so that you can achieve the goals of your dreams and live the life that you deserve.
I love it. I love it. So good. Such good advice, and so inspiring to know what you want first and then go for it. Any final parting words you want to say to our listeners?
Life's not easy all the time, and expect that it's going to be bumpy, but know that when it is, you have a toolbox on the side to, I guess, a first aid kit. Always have a first aid kit that you can draw from to get through any difficult time. Relaxation, movement, take care of your energy, make your mental health your number one priority. Get yourself connected to your higher power. For me, that's God. Relax, pray, journal, have a first aid kit, a go-to set of tools that you can draw from to get through anything, and seek wise counsel from those that have gone before you that have already achieved the things that you want to achieve. Always know you belong. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, just as you are. Don't change yourself. Be more of who you are and who God created you to be, and you will attract and draw the right people, tools, and resources to live a healthy and happy life.
Absolutely fabulous, rich with encouragement and instruction, wise words. April, thank you so much. April, it's been a pleasure to have you here and to hear some of your story and inspire people to know that they do belong, and watch out for other people to help them belong, that you create your belonging. Okay, friends, until next time, this is Dia Irby on Here Where You Belong podcast. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Here Where You Belong. We hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace the beauty of belonging in your own life. Remember, no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. Join us again next time for more insightful conversations and heartwarming stories. Until then, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember that you belong.